Did you know that medieval women faced death at every turn? Ever wonder what lurked around every corner for a woman in the Middle Ages if she survived giving birth? Life in medieval times was brutal, short, and filled with dangers we can barely imagine today. Number 5. The silent killer. Infections. Could you survive without antibiotics? Would a simple cut spell your doom? In the damp, drafty halls of medieval Europe, women faced a terrifying enemy they couldn't even see. Infections ravaged female bodies across all social classes, from queens in castles to peasants in thatched huts. Without antibiotics or modern understanding of germs, even minor wounds could lead to catastrophic consequences. Consider the daily life of Agnes Baker's wife in 14th century London. While preparing bread for the morning sales, she accidentally sliced her finger on a sharp knife, a common occurrence in the bustling medieval kitchen. The cut itself seemed trivial, nothing worth mentioning to her husband or neighbors. Within days, however, the wound turned red, then purple, with angry streaks climbing up her arm. The local wise woman applied poultices of herbs and bread mold, ironically containing natural antibiotics, though no one knew it then. But it was too late. What modern medicine identifies as sepsis had already taken hold. Puerperal fever, a massive infection following childbirth, claimed countless women who survived the actual delivery only to succumb days later to raging infections. Despite not being classified directly as a childbirth death, since it occurred afterward, this infection was particularly devastating to new mothers whose bodies were already weakened. Skin infections, too, proved deadly. A medieval woman's working life involved constant exposure to irritants, lye for washing clothes, animal feces in fields, and harsh weather conditions that chapped and cracked skin. These tiny wounds provided perfect entry points for bacteria. Without clean water or understanding of hygiene, infections spread rapidly through households and communities. Tooth infections represented another common path to an early grave. Medieval dental hygiene consisted mostly of herbal rinses and occasional extractions when pain became unbearable. Women, especially those who had been pregnant multiple times, which leached calcium from their bodies, suffered from dental abscesses that could eventually spread infection to the brain or bloodstream. The truly insidious aspect of infection was its democratic nature. While wealthy women might avoid some hazards of peasant life, infection played no favorites. The same bacteria that killed a field worker could just as easily claim a noblewoman. In fact, the medical treatments available to the wealthy sometimes increased their danger. Bloodletting, for instance, created new pathways for pathogens to enter the body. Number 4. Hunger's cruel embrace, famine and malnutrition. Have you ever felt the gnawing pain of true hunger? Can you imagine watching your children starve while you slowly wasted away? When crops failed and food stores emptied, medieval women often suffered first. Cultural practices throughout Europe typically gave preference to feeding male family members, who were considered the essential breadwinners. Women, particularly mothers, would sacrifice their own portions to feed husbands and children, accelerating their own decline. The Great Famine of 1315 to 1317 devastated northern Europe, when unprecedented rainfall destroyed crops for several consecutive growing seasons. Historical records from monasteries and royal courts describe women eating bark, grass, and even clay to stave off hunger pangs. Some accounts tell of mothers who died of starvation while their children still lived, a testament to their sacrifice and the biological reality that adult women could survive longer on fewer calories than growing children. Malnutrition created a vicious cycle for medieval women. Those weakened by inadequate nutrition became more susceptible to disease. while illness further depleted their already meager physical reserves. Winter months proved especially deadly, as preserved foods dwindled and fresh options remained months away. Women in late pregnancy or nursing infants faced double nutritional demands their bodies couldn't meet. Evidence from female skeletal remains across medieval burial sites tells a stark tale of nutritional stress. Bones show growth, interruptions, dental defects, and signs of anemia, all indicating periods of severe hunger. Researchers have noted that female skeletons often display more pronounced signs of nutritional deficiency than male remains from the same communities, confirming the historical accounts of gendered food distribution. The nobility wasn't immune either. During siege warfare, castles cut off from supply lines would eventually exhaust their stores. Historical accounts describe noble ladies consuming their exotic pets and even boiling leather items for sustenance, as sieges stretched from weeks into months. Perhaps most cruelly, famine often coincided with other calamities. The weakened population that survived the Great Famine became prime targets for the Black Death just decades later. For women who had endured years of malnutrition, their bodies lacked the resources to fight off the devastating plague. Number 3. Nature's fury, extreme weather, and accidents. Did death await in the very elements themselves? Could a sudden storm or freezing night claim your life without warning? In a world without weather forecasting, insulated housing, or central heating, the natural environment posed constant threats to medieval women. Their daily work, gathering water, tending gardens, managing household fires and washing clothes, exposed them to environmental dangers their male counterparts sometimes avoided. Winter claimed countless female lives through hypothermia and frostbite. The typical female peasant owned perhaps 2 sets of clothing, usually made of wool or linen, depending on the region. These garments provided minimal protection against bitter cold, especially when wet. Women washing clothes in streams during winter months frequently suffered exposure, their hands cracked and bleeding from cold water and harsh cleaning agents. Historical records from manorial courts mention women found frozen to death while gathering firewood or traveling between villages. The elderly and very young proved particularly vulnerable, but even healthy adult women succumbed to extreme cold, especially those malnourished or already ill. Summer brought different but equally deadly threats. Heat stroke killed women working harvest fields or tending outdoor fires for cooking and laundry. Without understanding of hydration or recognition of heat illness symptoms, women pushed themselves to complete necessary chores despite dangerous body temperatures. Lightning strikes represented a particular danger for women working in fields during sudden storms. Medieval chronicles contain numerous accounts of peasant women struck down while harvesting or planting. The metal components in their tools likely increased this risk. Flooding claimed female lives disproportionately as well. With homes built in vulnerable lowlands and no effective warning systems, flash floods could sweep away entire families. Women, often less likely to have learned swimming than men, drowned at higher rates. Chronicles from riverside communities describe tragic scenes of mothers found clutching children in death, both claimed by rising waters. Household accidents constituted another significant cause of female mortality. Medieval women managed fires for cooking, heating, and craft production, leading to frequent burns and deadly house fires. Their clothing, often loose with trailing sleeves, easily caught flame. Numerous medieval towns experienced devastating fires that began in kitchens or workshops where women labored. Falls represented another common accident. Women gathering eggs from haylofts, hanging laundry from upper windows, or collecting fruit from trees suffered fatal injuries from falls. Without modern medical intervention, broken bones often led to permanent disability or death from complications. As with other causes of death, social status provided only limited protection from environmental dangers. While a noblewoman might not personally launder clothes in a freezing river, her stone castle proved drafty and difficult to heat. The same winter that killed peasant women through exposure could claim aristocratic ladies through respiratory illness, exacerbated by cold, damp living conditions. Number 2. The invisible enemy: toxic trades and poisonings. Could your own home kill you? Was death lurking in your workshop or kitchen? Medieval women participated in numerous trades and household activities that exposed them to deadly toxins without any understanding of the dangers or protective equipment. Their bodies absorbed poisons through skin contact, inhalation, and accidental ingestion, often resulting in chronic illness that culminated in early death. Textile production. Primarily, women's work in medieval society involved particularly hazardous substances. Women preparing wool for spinning routinely used urine as a cleaning agent, exposing them to ammonia fumes that damaged lung tissue. Dyeing fabrics required handling corrosive substances like alum, iron sulfate, and various plant-based chemicals that caused skin lesions and respiratory damage. The historical record preserves accounts of blue women who worked with indigo dyes, their skin permanently stained and their health progressively declining from toxic exposure. Archaeological analysis of female remains from textile-producing regions shows elevated levels of heavy metals in bones and hair samples, confirming chronic poisoning. Pottery production, another craft with significant female participation, exposed women to silica dust that caused silicosis, a painful progressive lung disease. Women glazing pottery handled lead compounds with bare hands and breathed metallic fumes during firing. Skeletal remains from pottery-making communities show distinctive lead deposits in female bones. Even traditional female healing work carried toxic risks. Women who prepared medicines and poultices routinely handled deadly plants like foxglove, belladonna, and hemlock. A mistake in dosage could poison both practitioner and patient. Medieval medical texts contain cautionary tales of wise women who died after accidentally absorbing poisons through cuts on their hands while preparing remedies. Household management itself exposed women to numerous toxic substances. Cleaning agents included lye and ammonia, both caustic to skin and lungs. Women responsible for controlling household pests handled arsenic and mercury compounds, often with deadly consequences. Court records mention cases of women found dead near their own rat poison preparations, victims of accidental poisoning. Food preservation methods added additional risks. Women smoking meats inhaled carcinogenic compounds daily. Those preserving foods with high salt methods developed hypertension and related cardiovascular complications. Lead glazed pottery used for storing acidic foods like wine or vinegar leached toxins into consumables. Aristocratic women faced their own toxic exposures. Cosmetics containing lead, mercury, and arsenic promised fashionably pale skin while slowly poisoning their users. The Venetian ceruse, favored by noble ladies, contained white lead that damaged skin, caused hair loss, and eventually led to neurological symptoms before death. Historical accounts describe aging noblewomen with tremors, personality changes, and prominent tooth decay, all classic symptoms of lead poisoning. Particularly tragic were cases of intentional poisoning, a method sometimes deployed against women in power struggles or inheritance disputes. Queens, noblewomen, and wealthy merchant wives faced constant risk from poisoned food or drink. The medieval obsession with poison led to elaborate precautions among the wealthy: food tasters, unicorn horn cups, actually narwhal tusks, believed to detect poison and elaborate testing rituals before consuming anything. Number 1. The Great Equalizer. Epidemic disease. How quickly could your entire world vanish? What would it feel like to watch your neighbors, friends, and family die around you by the dozens? When epidemic disease swept through medieval communities, it scythed through the population with terrifying efficiency. While both men and women succumbed to these massive outbreaks, certain diseases affected women disproportionately due to their social roles, living conditions, and biological factors. The Black Death of 1347 to 1351 represents history's most infamous pandemic, killing an estimated 30 to 60% of Europe's population. Women, whose career-diving roles placed them in constant contact with the sick, contracted plague at elevated rates. Medieval chronicles describe entire female religious communities, nuns who nursed the afflicted, wiped out within days. Archaeological evidence from mass graves reveals equal or slightly higher female mortality during plague outbreaks. One theory suggests that women's generally lower iron stores, due to menstruation and childbearing, may have increased their vulnerability as the plague bacterium thrives in high iron environments. Beyond plague, numerous other epidemic diseases devastated female populations. Smallpox, with its characteristic disfiguring pustules, killed millions throughout the medieval period. Women who survived were often left with severe scarring that damaged their social and marriage prospects. Court records mention pock-marked widows struggling to remarry after surviving outbreaks, forcing many into poverty. Tuberculosis, known variously as consumption, or the White Plague, claimed women at higher rates than men in many communities. The disease flourished in crowded, poorly ventilated living quarters, precisely the spaces where women spent more time. The wet, cold homes of peasant women created ideal conditions for respiratory infections to develop into chronic, eventually fatal tuberculosis. Sweating sickness, a mysterious and terrifying disease that appeared in England in 1485, killed with astonishing speed. Victims could be healthy at breakfast and dead by dinner. Historical accounts suggest it affected women of childbearing age particularly severely, possibly due to hormonal factors that remain unclear even to modern epidemiologists. Typhoid fever spread through contaminated water supplies, affecting women who handled water for cooking, cleaning, and laundry. Their constant exposure to water sources increased their risk compared to men in many communities. Medieval town records occasionally mention multiple female deaths in specific neighborhoods, likely indicating contaminated wells. Dysentery, colloquially called the bloody flux, devastated communities regularly. Women preparing food without clean water or soap became both victims and unwitting vectors of this deadly intestinal disease. Their role in nursing the sick further increased their exposure. Women's community roles magnified their risk during epidemics. As primary caregivers for the ill, they had intimate contact with infectious individuals. Preparing bodies for burial exposed them to whatever had killed the deceased. Community water sources where women gathered to wash clothes became transmission points during outbreaks of waterborne illness. Perhaps most poignantly, pregnant women faced doubled mortality risk during epidemics. Many diseases that might be survivable for non-pregnant women proved fatal when combined with the physical stresses of pregnancy. Historical records note double burials, mother and unborn child interred together, clustered during epidemic periods. The psychological toll of epidemics on surviving women must have been immense. Many became widows, responsible for entire households after male deaths. Others lost multiple children in swift succession. Medieval chronicles record women who died of grief after epidemic losses, likely describing depression so severe it led to self-neglect or suicide. Did medieval women go through their days constantly contemplating their mortality? Could you endure knowing that every winter might be your last, every cut potentially fatal, every pregnancy a possible death sentence?